一刷根39大林邦呀，腾满腾腾啊巴扎呀扎呀。
My presentation, I was just reflecting on Andrew's presentation, which has gone out to millions and millions of people all around the world. And I thought, wow, I'm working very locally in my community. So it's the other end of the scale. So I'd like to, I'm going to be talking about things that I've done in my community, applying the principles of permaculture in my life and the areas that I can have an effect. So these are the things I want to talk about. So my husband Joe Polisher and I, we discovered permaculture way back in 1985. And somebody gave us a book, Permaculture 1. And we were completely inspired by it and we were keen to put it into practice. So we were very early adopters of permaculture. So we went and did PDCs and we read all the books, and then we wanted to buy some land. So the first project I'm going to talk about is the land that we bought in 1988, which we called Rainbow Valley Farm. And then I want to talk about creating a farmers market in our village. So, and then another project in 2008 was creating a local food exchange, which we called Green Swap. So Matakana is the name of our village. So, and then sadly Joe died and I couldn't keep the farm going, so I sold it and I moved to the village. And I want to tell you about setting up my new home in the village of Matakana. And then my next project was to create a community garden. And finally, my latest project, which I'm very proud of, I have set up a charity called Mahurangi Wastebusters Trust. Mahurangi is the name of our region, and this is to reduce waste. So I want to go through those projects with you. So I come from a family, I've never been to university. I left school when I was 15 years old because my family was poor and I needed to go to work to earn money for the family. So I've come from a ground roots perspective. So just starting with Rainbow Valley Farm. This was our farm here. And that picture is taken 20 years after we established it. So I was quite pleased to hear that Andrew say you should take before and after pictures because I've got lots of them. So Joe and I, we didn't have a lot of money, so we needed to find land that we could afford. And this land was very cheap because it was very degraded. It was eroded and it was infested with weeds and pests, and it was cheap. The local farmers called it rubbish land, so we bought it. And we had a vision to turn it into a permaculture paradise. So this is a picture of us when we arrived. We were so happy, we got our land. And this is a picture of us 20 years later. Gone a bit grey. And so this land was sort of in this valley down here, and we called it Rainbow Valley Farm because of the many rainbows that we saw arching over the valley. And these were the problems that we had. It was run-down farmland. This land had a very sad history. 100 years before, the early European settlers had come in. They'd cut down all the good trees for timber, and they'd burnt off the rest to create pasture for sheep and cattle. But they didn't understand that this is rainforest land. And when you take away the trees, there's nothing to hold the soil because it's a big rainfall here. So all the soil washed off the hills, down into the river and out into the sea. So one of our biggest jobs was to grow soil. So we arrived in this truck and Joe built a little house on the back. So we lived in this, we called it our house truck, for 2 years without power and without phone. So if I wanted to make a phone call, I had to drive this 2-ton truck 4 kilometres down to the village to a phone box. And this is how we got clean. We got a bathtub, we lit a fire, we heated up the water, and it was very good. And here, this is our first garden. So immediately we wanted to have some food growing. So we set up this little garden. I used to do the washing in the bathtub. So our first priorities were water. As we know, without water, there's no life. And we were extremely lucky there were some springs on this land. So we high up on the land. So we captured the spring water in a tank and we were able to put pipes down to bring it down to where we were living. And then we wanted to get some gardens and we got chickens and ducks. And then we started to really do the permaculture design for the land. Observation, observing what was there, what could we use, what could we enhance. And of course we did our sector analysis. So in New Zealand, in the southern hemisphere, we want to orient everything to the north because that's the sunny side. If you're in the northern hemisphere, you're looking to the south, which is the sunny side. So, and then we developed our design plan. So we figured out we would have, this was our farm buildings down here, our house facing north, and this was going to be our orchard, ponds. We wanted to establish ponds. This was our zone, that was zone 2, zone 3. So then we started implementing our plan. So the very first thing we needed to do was to get some shelter from the cold winds from the south. The cold winds come up from Antarctica. So we needed to get some shelter, a windbreak, and then we could plant our orchard. There was a few trees on the land which we could mill for timber for our buildings, and then we wanted to build a barn and finally a house. But our biggest job was to build soil. So here's some of the problems we faced. Apart from the erosion, or the soil washing off, we had this terrible weed called gorse. Now gorse was brought to New Zealand from Scotland, where they used to use it for separating grazing paddocks. But in New Zealand, in our climate, it just exploded. And it's very prickly, and farmers hate it. It's very hard to get rid of. Most farmers spray it. But as we know, in permaculture, the problem is the solution. We had to find ways to use this problem to make it work for us. And we found out that gorse is a nitrogen fixer. It fixes nitrogen in the soil. So that was a great start. And then we cut some of it. We put it around our newly planted fruit trees to stop the other big pest, possums. Possums were introduced to New Zealand from Australia for the fur industry. But in New Zealand, possums have no predators. So they exploded and they eat the forest, they eat the garden, they absolutely devastate the landscape. So we were using this problem to protect our fruit trees from this problem. So that worked pretty well. And then, of course, we had to concentrate on building soil. So of course we had worm farms, we made lots of compost, we used pig tractors. So we had these little square cages and we moved them every day. The pigs had shelter, they had water, they had food, and you can see over here, that was the day before. The pig ate all the grass, and so we could plant a fruit tree there. So they were doing the work for us, using natural, using our livestock to help us. This was the windbreak, the shelter belt that we planted in 1988. You can see these little trees, and we planted those during Cyclone Bowler. It was a massive cyclone in New Zealand, and we were living in our house truck, and I honestly thought it was going to get blown over. So I'll never forget planting that. And this is what it looked like 20 years later. This is the neighbour's land and our land. And then here, this was an aerial shot in 1990. We'd been there for 2 years, and we'd built a barn, a farm building, and we'd moved in there. And over here, we'd started excavating for our house site. And you can see how much in 2 years the shelter trees had grown up. And this picture is 10 years after we moved there, and you can see already we had really good shelter. And this was lots of fruit trees. This is a before and after shot. That's the neighbour's land on that side of the fence, and our land on this side of the fence. 20 years later, neighbour's land, our land. When you give nature a chance, it's very, very fast. Our neighbours sprayed with terrible chemicals, but we did not use any chemicals. It was all organic, and you can see our beautiful orchard down here. And these trees here were giving us some protection from the sprays over here. Here's a before and after picture of the garden. Here, down there's the orchard, zone 2, here was the garden, and 20 years later, or a few years later. And very quickly we had lots of food. That was our orchard, 1990, and these are the kind of fruits that we grew. There's vanilla passion fruit, figs, all kinds of stuff. These are my favourite peaches. Grapes. And here's a chart. So you can see every season of the year, spring, summer, autumn, winter, we had something that was fruiting. So we planted 800 fruit and nut trees. Yeah. 800 fruit and nut trees. Yeah. We also had a rice paddy. We hand dug this rice paddy. So there was a talk at the conference about azolla. Do you remember that? So we had azolla. And it's a fantastic fertilizer because it's a little water fern. It floats on the top of the water. It fixes nitrogen, and so it's a fantastic fertilizer. So we used to take it off to fertilize our gardens and put in the compost. Yeah. And it was very successful. We got really good rice. Lots of rice. And we also grew shiitake mushrooms on logs. This was our mushroom house. We made the mushroom house by planting 2 rows of willow trees and tying them together to make it nice and shady. And it was next to the stream, so it was kind of a damp area. And of course we had bees. Every permaculture, well, we needed to have bees. And honey was one of our biggest products that we sold. And catch and store energy. I did lots of preserving and fermenting and pickling, lots of things there. And these were some of the animals that we had. We had geese, chickens, pigeons, guinea fowl, all sorts of birds in our landscape. We had about 10 sheep. Oh, the land was 21 hectares, so it was quite big. And we had house cows, 2 house cows. So we milked the cows every day. We had our own milk, could make cheese, could make butter. And now I'd like to show you some pictures of our house. So this was the house site when we moved there in 1988, and covered by that weed gorse, all around by gorse. And then this is probably, I don't know, 10 years later, or 15 years later. It's a house with an earth roof, so it just blends into the landscape. And this was the orchard down here. And it looked like this. And we built this house ourselves. Joe built this house. This is me planting the roof. And twice I weeded the roof, and then I said to those plants, "You're on your own." And this is it, the roof, that's after it did its own thing. Here's a picture of us making the mud bricks. We made thousands of mud bricks by hand. And sometimes we had a party. We invited some friends, and I made a really nice lunch. And we made mud bricks in the morning, and then they could go to the beach in the afternoon. So we did it very, very low tech. We dug a hole, we shoveled in some clay, we put in some straw, and then we got some nice music going, did some dancing, and then we put them in these moulds, and we pressed them out and left them out in the sun to dry for a few days, but only a few days until they got an outside crust, because if you dry them too quickly they crack. So as soon as they had a little bit of a crust on the outside, we took them into the shade and let them slowly dry for another 6 months. So here we're making the mud bricks for the inside walls. It took 6 years to build this house because we didn't have a lot of money, so we were building it as we could. So when we ran out of money, Joe would go off and he would build a house for somebody else to earn some money, and I had a part-time job in a local pottery and doing bookkeeping. And this is the house when it was all finished, and we had our Zone 1 garden was just right outside the house. And of course we had compost toilets. This one we had 2 toilets, and under here were really big worm farms. So we'd use this side for maybe 2 months or 3 months, and then we'd close that one and we'd use that side. So by the time that was after 3 months, we'd come back and we just alternated, and it was like a giant worm farm down there. And we started to get many, many visitors, but even with all our visitors, we only really had to empty it about once a year. And we made it look beautiful inside. So we had a sitting one and a squatting one. So because when we first moved to this village of Matakana, people thought we were just hippies. They weren't very friendly to us. And we didn't really know why they weren't friendly. And when we went down to the village to buy something from the shop, they were looking down on us and nobody talked to us. And we didn't really know why, because we were friendly. And later we found out they thought we were hippie dope growers. They thought we were growing marijuana up in the hills. So eventually they found out we weren't growing marijuana. Oh, then they became quite friendly. So then we had, because it was so different, it was the first house in the whole region that had an earth roof and mud walls. Lots of people got interested and lots of people wanted to come and see it. So we started hosting groups. Local school kids came. So this is just sitting outside the house, and over there's the garden. And then Joe used to teach them how to make toys out of banana leaves. He'd cut down a big leaf, make boats, and then they would go down to the stream and the kids would sail their boats down the stream. And then we started to host permaculture design courses, PDCs, and this is a group that came from the Permaculture Centre of Japan. And they used to become, for several years, they'd bring a group to the farm. And one of the other things that Joe always said, he wanted to create beauty. He wanted to not only be beautiful, but look beautiful. So we planted flowers everywhere. So this was our truck. We used to sometimes collect food scraps from a local cafe, and so all the chickens, they knew when the truck was driving up, they knew food. So this was one of their favourite places. So if you want to, there's a nice little video, 20 minutes long, on YouTube. If you want to have a look at it, there's a TV program in New Zealand called Country Calendar that's been going for about 30 years. It's one of the most popular TV programs, and it goes out onto farms. So they came to us in 2004, 20 years ago, and they did this program, and it's on YouTube, and it turned out to be one of the most popular country calendar programs ever. So if you want to look at it, you can just Google it. So the next project that I want to talk about is the Matakana Farmers Market. So we were growing all this produce and we were selling it to people that we knew, but we didn't really have time to do marketing, and we didn't have enough to sell to a supermarket. So we were invited to help. Some people down in the village bought some land, and they approached us and said, "What do you think about the idea of having a farmers market?" And Joe and I had just come back from Japan, where we'd been teaching permaculture, and our friends had taken us to some farmers markets in rural Japan up around Iwate, and we were so inspired. So we said, yes, let's have a farmers market, but a true farmers market where the farmers are all local, they come and they sell the food themselves. So we helped set this up. We met for about a whole year with all the other little local growers that we could find. There was a guy doing honey, there was other vegetable growers, fruit growers, there were people doing olive oil, and there was someone making bread. And anyway, we all got together and we started this farmers market. In the beginning, there were about 25 stalls. It's gone mad. People love it. Now there's 60 stalls, and every Saturday people come from Auckland, and so in the beginning it was just the locals came here to buy their vegetables. But now every Saturday there's about 6,000 people come here from Auckland City every week. It's really gone crazy. So the markets that we saw in Japan, there was always a picture on the back of the stall of the people who were selling their produce, and this was our picture with our cow. This is Rusty. And in those early days, we used to teach down there as well. So Joe and I are teaching people about composting and worm farming here. And of course, right from the beginning, we wanted it to be zero waste. So anything that people wanted to throw away had to be separated. This was food, scraps, glass, plastic, paper, and all of it went to be recycled, and we made compost out of this. So as we know, farmers markets are great because they bring the consumer in touch with the producer, so both get a better price, and also it's no food miles, it's local food, it's creating a local economy, and this was really a great success. And after Joe died in 2008, the market put up this beautiful plaque at the market in memory of Joe Polaisha, passionate environmentalist and inspiration behind our farmers market. So that was really nice. My next project I want to talk about is Matakana Green Swap. So we wanted to have a local food bartering system. So we called it the Green Swap, and we started it in 2008, and that's where people in the community who've got too much vegetables in their garden, they can bring it and we swap. So for example, I might have too much cabbage or kale or silver beet or plums or apples, and I can take them there and I can come home with eggs or bread or pickles or lots of different things. So a friend and I started this in 2008, and 16 years later it's still going, it's still really popular, and it's been another great success. And we meet at a public shelter in the village by the river, and some people bring flowers and all kinds of stuff. And we're also zero waste. We all bring our things in a basket, no plastic bags. And the important thing is we keep it short, half an hour. In summer and autumn, it's every Friday from 9 till 9:30, and in winter, it's every fortnight, every 2 weeks. And it's just half an hour, and everybody can fit it into their day. So the mums might have dropped their kids at school and they've got time to come, and people sometimes, if they work late, they can come before work. So it's been a really good little community building project. Now, during the COVID lockdowns, we couldn't meet because we weren't allowed to gather. And that year I had so many apples and so many pears and so many feijoas. Do you know these feijoas? Yeah. So we just had an informal green swap. We put a box of food out at our gate and we'd send a message around, and people would come and get it and save them going to the supermarket. So it was great. I put out all these apples and pears and feijoas, and I got back horse manure, mushrooms, chicken manure. You never really knew what you'd get, but the stuff would show up on your doorstep, at your gate. So this was really good. So as I mentioned, Joe passed away in 2008, and I kept Rainbow Valley Farm going for 2 years. But it was really hard work for me on my own. And then I got a message from the universe. I tripped over a tree root and I broke my right ankle and dislocated and ruptured the tendons. So I ended up in a wheelchair for 3 months. So I thought, thank you, universe. I got the message. It's time to move on. So I sold the farm and I moved down 4 kilometres down the road to the village. And this was the land I bought there. And of course I did a permaculture design, I did a sector analysis, I made my design, zones. And the first thing I needed to do was to get rainwater tanks, because this village has no water supply. So we all catch the water off our roof, store it in tanks. So this is my tanks arriving, and you can see the soil is very, very heavy clay. So it's a bit of a challenge to grow things in. This time I wanted a house in a hurry. I didn't want to wait to do a earth house in 6 years. I wanted a house instantly. So I chose wood. So this is my house being built, and it's all from wood grown in the local area. It's a passive solar design, so that the winter sun shines in and warms up the house, and the summer sun, which is higher in the sky, can't come in, so it keeps cool. So this is my new house, and I got solar panels, and I also got a wood burner multifunction. This brick wall absorbs the heat, so thermal mass, and it's got a wet back which can heat my water in winter, and I can also cook on it. So multifunction. And this is what my house looks like. And then I had to deal with the soil, this heavy, heavy clay soil. So I had to get lots of organic matter into it. But I wanted some instant gardens. So I had some wood left over from my house. So I had these garden beds built along the edge of the deck. And pretty soon I had some food growing. And then I concentrated on creating fertility. I did lots of worm farming, compost making. I used anything I could get hold of. And here I'm creating some gardens along the driveway. And when I left Rainbow Valley Farm, I bought a camper van. So I lived in the camper van for about 1.5 years. So I arrived in a house truck and I left in a camper van. And then slowly I started to plant feijoa trees in here. And then I used daikon radish. They're known as the organic crowbar. So they break up the soil. So they were amazing. They did so well. And I ended up with a lot of daikon. And then in 2012, I moved into my house in 2011. It only took 6 months to build because it was wood. Then I had some wood left over, so I had these frames built to plant the orchard trees into. And very quickly it got transformed. So that's what my house looks like. Here's my solar panels. And very quickly I had lots of food. And this picture, I'm planting a plum tree. You can see this tree here. And then 3 years later it looked like this. This is my favourite plum. So, and then I don't know how many of you know feijoas. We love feijoas in New Zealand. They are so good. Who knows feijoas? Yeah, they're so good.
His favourite.
His favourite. So I also can grow bananas. These are my bananas. Kaki fruit, persimmons, grapes, and peaches I can grow, garlic. And of course I had to have some mushrooms So I've got mushroom logs. This was one of my first harvests after I'd been there. So, I better hurry up. My next project, a community garden. So, in 2012, a friend and I decided we would like to have a community garden in the Matakana village. So we came up with a nice vision. We wanted it to be a place where members of the community can gather to garden, grow vegetables, fruit, herbs and flowers, learn, share ideas and relax. So we wanted to create community. So we were very lucky. There was some community land in the village and we got permission to turn this area into a community garden. There was a lot of rubbish there. There were old tyres, there was plastic pots, there were all kinds of rubbish in there. So we thought, okay, this is going to be a really big job. So our first thing we had to do was find out if this community wanted a community garden, because we didn't want to do it just by ourselves. So we talked to everybody that we saw, we put out leaflets, we gave public meetings, and then, yes, there seemed to be enough interest. So we called a working bee. And on the day that we got everyone together, about 50 people turned up. And we built a garden in a day. So, of course, we got rid of all the rubbish, and we asked people to bring food scraps to make compost, surface composting. We got a trailer load of horse manure from the horse riding place, and it was only about 5 hours, and we completely sheet mulched the area, and we created this garden. And this is my friend and I very proudly standing there by our new garden. So it's been such a great success. That was 2012, and even now, we meet on Monday mornings, 9 till about 10:30, 11, and we keep it really casual. You don't have to join, you don't have to become a member, you just show up when you feel like it. And we've got a Facebook page. So, and we did the same with the green swap that I mentioned earlier. Don't have to join, you don't have to become a member. You come when you feel like it, don't come if you don't. So keeping it nice and casual seems to have really worked, because every Monday morning between 10 and 15 people show up, and we all work together, all ages. We've got one grandmother who brings her 2 grandchildren. We've got one lovely young girl who brings her 2-year-old. So we started with a garden that was 14 metres long, and then it was so popular we doubled it, and then we doubled it again. So now it's quite a long garden. You can see all the way along here. And then we planted 50 fruit trees all around the edge. So we've got feijoas, apples, pears, persimmons, figs, what else? Yeah, lots of fruit trees. So, and the good thing about it, it's created an amazing community. People love coming there, and we laugh a lot. And we have celebrations, and we have coffee, and people bring cakes, and it's really a lovely atmosphere. Right, the last thing I want to talk about is Mahurangi Wastebusters. So, this is my most recent project. It's been keeping me very busy, and I've got a few Zoom calls coming up. Back in 2017, Auckland Council, which is the big council that covers our area, they put out what they call an RFP, Request for Proposals. So the council owned 2 local transfer stations. So a transfer station is where people bring their rubbish, that things they don't want, and they dump it in a big skip, and it got always taken away to a landfill. So Auckland Council put out this RFP for proposals. Did anyone want to do something different? So I thought, yes, permaculture, produce no waste. So I thought, well, I better find out if anybody wants a community recycle, because I thought, let's have a community recycling centre. So first I thought, well, I better find out if anybody wants one in the area. So I called a public meeting in our local town hall, and I was very happy that 50 people showed up, and there was lots of enthusiasm, and we did a whole visioning process on what we should have there. And so I thought, yes, that's good, let's do it. So then I formed a charitable trust, Mahurangi Wastebusters. So kaupapa, that's a Māori word, a beautiful Māori word that means purpose. So our kaupapa was to reduce waste to landfill. So we formulated a proposal and we put it into Auckland Council, and there were 4 or 5 other waste companies also put in proposals, but Auckland Council, they liked ours. So they gave us a contract, and we got this contract, and now we have converted 2 transfer stations into community recycling centres, and we opened in 2019. This was our kaupapa. This was our purpose. Promote the reduction, repair, reuse and recycling of waste. Because waste creates climate change, methane gases. So this is climate action, but on the level of reducing waste. We support community waste minimisation initiatives. We do educational programs, and we put resources back into our community for local benefit. So that's our kaupapa. And so we do things like this. When this is the local school, they had had an event, and so we put these recycling stations in. Compost, which we then take away and make compost. Recycling, which we then separate and send off to the recyclers, and then hopefully not much goes into the landfill one. And we organise beach cleanups and town cleanups. So this is what we call the waste hierarchy. The most preferred is the green one up the top, and the least preferred is this one, where it goes to a landfill. So we're always trying to work up the top of the waste hierarchy. Recycling is good, and of course we have to do it, but it's not as good as reusing, reducing. So avoiding is the big one. Avoid buying something in plastic or with a short-term life, like a short single-use coffee cup. So avoid. If you really can't avoid, reduce the amount of it that you use. This is what we teach people. And then, of course, going on to the others. So, our current services, excuse me, we take rubbish, we take all of these things. We've got about 30 different waste streams that we take. When people come to our place with a trailer load or a car load of rubbish, we separate it into all of these 28 different categories, and we send it off to be reused or recycled. We also host school groups, and we do site tours, and we have a compost unit where we make compost out of local business compostables. So I'll show you some pictures. And our aim is to divert 80% from landfill. 80% of what people bring us, we want to divert from landfill. So green waste, we send that off for compost making. This kind of plastic, we send that off, and it gets made into fence posts. Scrap metal is very valuable. We send that down to Auckland to a place called Endless Metals, and that gets reconstituted into steel and other things. Our compost project, we make compost in these boxes, and we pick up business waste. This one, there's a brewery called the Sawmill Brewery. We get their spent hops, so our compost smells really nice. We get coffee from this bakery. And we also we're working in 8 early childhood centres and 4 schools. And the kids are great, the kids get it. And we also run repair cafes where we get volunteers who can fix things, and then people bring their things in to get fixed, like electric jugs and like ripped clothing, and we have like fixing bicycles. And and just recently we Auckland Council gave us a big shed about like this, and we turned it into a big shop. And this was at the opening, and this is a very important person from Auckland Council and me cutting the ribbon to open the shop. And I made it onto the front page of our local newspaper. I had to wait till I was in my 70s to become a cover girl, but I've made it. I made it now. So this is what we have in our new shop. You would not believe what people throw away. But now, people are starting to bring us good things. So they've got stuff that they don't want it anymore. Maybe they're downsizing, maybe their parents died and they have to get rid of the household stuff. Because they know we're not going to dump it. They know we're going to do something good with it. So now we're getting all kinds of good stuff. We get so many bicycles, and we get, because kids grow up and, you know, the bike's too small. All kinds of stuff we get. We get plates and everything, and we get wood, leftover building materials. So somebody's building a house and they've got too much wood, they bring it to us. And so we sell it for a very low price. We're a charity, so we don't have to make money for shareholders, but we need to make enough money to pay our staff. And now we've got 10 staff and 5 volunteers. So, and then a new thing, Auckland Council gave us this old building. It really was in a bad state. But we renovated it, and look at it now. It looks amazing. So we have, that's where we have our repair cafes. We teach people how to repair their clothes and make bags and all kind of things. Oops, sorry, go back one. And we, and here we've got a school class in. This is one of my people, Rachel. She's teaching these kids about what they can put, how to recycle properly, and how to do worm farming. And we also, sometimes we have a fabric rescue where people have old fabric and they don't need it anymore, but somebody else can use it and make things out of it. So we call that fabric rescue. And here we've got this guy teaching people how to maintain their bicycles so they don't have to throw them away. So it's very active, and I'm very happy about it. So this is our motto. We don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions doing it imperfectly. Everybody does a little bit, and that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you. So, any questions?
It's really inspiring to see you doing all this work, and it's a really big inspiration for youth like us to continue to the journey.
Thank you
for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I just want you to know that I'm old and I can still do it. I'm 76 and I can still do it. So come forward, young people. Yes.
You became my inspiration to us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. But I wonder how you keep people coming to your community and joining
We make it fun. We have celebrations.
Can you give an example what is the most attractive thing?
Well, let me just tell you about our community garden. So when people come, new people, we make them welcome, and we don't care if they only pull out 3 weeds. If they start chatting to somebody, there's a lot of chatting going on. It's not hard work. We grow a lot of vegetables, and we always harvest it. We garden all together. We harvest the food, we put it on a big table, and we share it out. And we don't mind if people don't work hard. If they only chatting and just pulling a few weeds, that's okay. We have fun. And then afterwards we sit down and have a coffee. And then we chat for another hour. We've got to have fun. Yes.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, the first farm, the Rainbow Valley Farm,
Yes.
so I was
Yes.
wondering, did it still continue as a permaculture farm?
Good question. Yeah. So the people I sold it to seemed like the perfect people, and they kept it going beautifully for the next 2 years. But then they sold it and moved back to the South Island. I think it was too much work for them. And then it went through 6 years of being very, very neglected. It got overgrown. The gardens were completely overgrown. The buildings started to get run down. So it was a very sad time. But then a young couple came along and bought it off them. And now they've been there for 5 years, and they're a wonderful young couple. They're zero waste people. And I have a very lovely friendship with them, and it's nice to go there. And Paul was there. Paul went there, yeah. Yeah, so it's now a happy place again.
Nice.
But they're not farming like we were, but they have some chickens and they have a couple of cows and a garden. So, but they're doing a lot of reforestation, replanting forest, because this was originally all forest land. So they're replanting native forest. So it's good.
Trish, I don't really have a question. I just want to say that you're amazing. I have so much love and affection for you.
Oh, thank you.
What a life well spent. I really appreciate you taking time to come here.
Thank you.
Bravo, Trish!
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes.
The new owners of Rainbow Valley Farm has Facebook.
Yes, they do.
Name Rainbow Valley.
They do. They have a Facebook page, the new owners, same name, Rainbow Valley Farm. And if you want to look up our community garden, we have a Facebook page, Matakana Community Garden, and our green swap, we have Matakana Green Swap. Yes.
In the beginning of your project, how could you initiate people and how could you let people know? And what was the main force?
Well, like the community garden and the green swap and Mahurangi waste buses, well, I didn't try and do it by myself. I first of all needed to find out if other people liked the idea. So I needed to talk to people, explain it. Yeah, shall we do this? What do you think? And I was very lucky. Every time people came forward and said, yes, we like the idea. Yes, we'll come. So, and then celebrations, have fun. Yes.
Thank you for education was very happy. You are doing things your age, and it's very inspiring for me.
Thank you.
And I'm very happy and grateful to get to listen to you.
Oh, thank you. Well, the other thing is, like, I don't have a... I left school at 15 years old. I never been to university. So you can still do it if you just want to learn and apply yourself. Yeah. 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 So, are we done?
刷去39大林放呀，藤蔓当。